Thank you, Mayor Kenny. We're so lucky to have a mayor who speaks from the heart, and Jim's heart is as big as they come. So thank you, Mayor Kenny. All right, Netroots Nation, let me feel some of that Philadelphia love. So from the moment that Philly was announced as a host city, I've been so excited to welcome you all here to this, the original city of rebels and revolutionaries and people. We are going to channel some of that historic spirit here today. On Thursday night, Marriott worker Kat Payne called us the storm. And today we're here to fill the room with our thunder. And I want to start by rooting this conversation in real politics and in the movements that will bring us out in droves in 2020 and beyond. Because if there's one thing that I hope you'll take away from Philly, it's that our politics are only as strong as our movements. I'm a first-term city council member who came into office after 20 years of community organizing and investing in the movements that are remaking our city. These movements offer an alternative to the politics of austerity and fear of disinvestment and dispossession, the politics that kept 40% of Pennsylvanians home in November 2016. Here, in the poorest big city in the United States, more than 1 out of 4 Philadelphians lives in poverty, and almost 40% of our children are born into it. This poverty is literally a matter of life and death. We have a 20-year life expectancy difference between this zip code and another less than a half-mile away from here. Poverty and inequality on this scale don't happen by accident. It happens when we allow that poverty to become inevitable, when we allow public policy to be driven by private profit rather than the public good. And because of that, my job is not to reflect the political winds, it's to change them. My roots are deep here in Philadelphia's Asian American and immigrant communities. This convention center that we're all sitting in was once all Chinatown. We lost half our land and a third of our housing to make way for development. That sacrifice, those tears, and that history is the place from which we build. I'm also a mom and a former public school teacher who comes out of public education communities. We are a crew of mothers and fathers, of organizers, activists, and dreamers that built a movement around quality public schools for every child, housing as a human right, a justice system that works for the common good, and the belief that one job should be enough. Together, we fought off a decades-long state takeover that stripped our schools of resources, busted unions, over-tested, funneled kindergartners into the school-to-prison pipeline, and unleashed mass school closings on poor and working-class neighborhoods. In response, we built coalitions. We challenged the forces who would profit off the Muslim bans and mass incarceration and called them out for being the same ones profiting off of our health care, cutting taxes for the wealthy, exploiting workers, and closing our public schools, and we demanded change. We were told no, we were told this wasn't our time, and we were told we weren't the right ones. But that's a wrong message to say to people like us. It only meant we're gonna get louder, we were gonna build bigger, and that change, real, meaningful change, was the only option. Our motto is this: we only get what we are organized to take. Something else is possible. A coalition which had labored for years, centering the voices of our youth, Black, brown, and immigrant communities, of poor and working class people all across the city. We could build a vision for Philadelphia that's bigger, broader, and more unifying than had anything that had come out of City Hall before. And that the people who told us no, who told us it wasn't our time, well, they were gonna know that we were coming. In 2015, when it became clear that City Hall wasn't working for us, we came for City Hall. I ran to end that state takeover and establish a local school board for the first time in 20 years. 2 years later, led by racial and criminal justice reform organizations, we elected the country's most progressive district attorney, expanding our movement networks and building a formidable base. And so what does it mean for these movements, for education justice, for immigrant rights and criminal justice reform to take office? Did we prove unable to govern? Were our solutions impractical or unworkable, as our critics would loudly declare? Well, you know what? It turns out that we became one of the most effective political and social forces in the city in a generation. Here in Philadelphia, we passed the country's most ambitious Fair Workweek law, establishing the right to stable schedules for 130,000 low-wage workers. We've ensured that for the first time, renters facing eviction have publicly funded legal defense. We've disempowered ICE in this city by ending municipal sharing agreements and fighting family detention. And shout out to Shutdown Burks. And we restored nurses, counselors, social workers, music programs, and clean water to every single child in every public school. And at every turn, our movements led the way. So if you're excited by what you've seen and heard, by the work happening in Philadelphia and in big cities and small towns all across this country, then thank the movement folks in this room that have been fighting for our communities. We were at it long before Trump, and we'll be at it long after we crush him next year. Now, I'm going to look forward to hearing the candidates come up today to talk about issues that matter to us, and they better cover the things that matter: inequality and poverty in Black, brown, and immigrant communities, public housing and public schools and public transit as human rights, Medicare for all that's free at the point of service, and stop private equity from bankrupting our health systems and profiting off of selling our hospitals like Hahnemann. And I'll say this, that message is not just to Trump, that's to our Democratic governor and to our legislators as well. You will not be complicit. And in a city where just a few weeks ago a refinery blew up on national TV, endangering the lives of hundreds of thousands, we need a Green New Deal. It will not only decarbonize, but it will equalize our nation. And I hope that you will take these movement lessons with you from this city, because we will end a Muslim ban in the same way that we ended a city's collaboration with a racist deportation machine, and we will abolish ICE. We will end the privatization of healthcare in Washington, D.C., the same way we learned to end privatization of public education in Philadelphia. And we will end the reign of Donald Trump the same way we ended the era of big money, top-down politics in City Hall. With us, all of us. Because when we're pushed to the margins, I keep this in mind, we change the center when we bring other people in. We change it through community, through wielding power by and for all of us. That's what we've done in Philadelphia for the last 4 years. And I'll end with this. Recently, a big political Philadelphia icon told me that I, and whatever he termed the far left, were the biggest threat to the Democratic Party. And I told him he was damn right. But not in the ways that he thought, because the agenda that we built, the people we've centered, and the power we've wielded is at the very center of what it means to make change. It's what holds us together, it's what binds us as a body politic, and it's our future. And if the history of this convention center on stolen land has something to teach us, it's that our future has its roots in the lessons of our losses and the fearless leadership we take when we've got a shot to make some change. So our lesson is simple. Netroots, we will only get what we are organized to take. And if that's a threat, then expect us.